Hello, you're watching World News live from Warsaw. My name is Sasha Farbach. We begin in Ukraine, where at least one person was killed and 4 were injured in a mass Russian drone attack on Kyiv late Friday night. Drone strikes were reported in at least 3 districts in the capital, resulting in 2 fires. The Ukrainian capital is still experiencing a widespread energy blackout after Russian strikes on energy infrastructure knocked out the electricity supply. Emergency workers are still scrambling to restore water and electricity services to residents, amid overnight temperatures dipping to minus 13 degrees Celsius. 11 people were also injured in an attack on Kharkiv when a drone strike hit a shelter for displaced people. Several Kharkiv districts were targeted by Russian drones. Let's move now to the Middle East, where U.S. brokered talks between Ukraine and Russia kicked off Friday in the United Arab Emirates and are due to continue over the weekend. Ukraine is facing increased pressure from Washington to reach a deal to end the war, while Moscow is demanding that Kyiv give up control of the entire Donbas region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says territorial issues will be at the top priority of the talks. Our correspondent Oz Chatterjee reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said it was too early to draw conclusions from the negotiations taking place in Abu Dhabi, those trilateral talks between the United States, Ukraine and Russia. Earlier, the Ukrainian president had said the issue of the territories of Donetsk and Luhansk would be the key talking point at these talks. This was something echoed by the Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov following his talks with the US delegation in Moscow, saying that if Ukraine doesn't withdraw from Donetsk and Luhansk, then there won't be any hope of reaching a long-term solution. Ukraine's position throughout multiple rounds of negotiations has been that it's not willing to withdraw from those territories. And Zelenskyy in his nightly address saying Ukraine's position was clear, not touching upon what exactly he meant by that, but the likelihood of Russia and Ukraine reaching an agreement on Donetsk and Luhansk is currently slim, even if these negotiations are proceeding well. Zelenskyy did call the negotiations important in his nightly address. However, even if they were to agree some sort of Ukrainian withdrawal, Zelensky's government was to agree that, Zelenskyy says it would need to be resolved through a sort of referendum put to the people. This will be a very, very difficult thing to sell, with the Kyiv Institute of Sociology recently polling that a majority of Ukrainians oppose giving away those territories, even in exchange for US security guarantees. So even if some agreement was to be reached in Abu Dhabi, the prospects of Zelenskyy actually being able to do that with the consent of his people is not clear either. But for now, the talks are ongoing, but there are major roadblocks for them to reach any kind of settlement as things stand. I'm Oz Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
As talks over Ukraine's future drag on, territorial demands remain the bottleneck. Geopolitical analyst David Debato points to unresolved issues around sovereignty and security that could block any agreement.
This is in the Ukrainian constitution. They don't want, nor should they give up any land at all, and certainly no territory that the Russians don't even control. That's the primary reason. But as I said, also security guarantees, as well as financial, but security being the primary one. If they can't get guarantees that they don't have to give up territory in the Donbas or anywhere else in eastern Ukraine that Russia doesn't even control, and that they're going to get at least allegedly security guarantees that they agree upon, whether that's boots on the ground, advisors, equipment, weapons, and so forth, they're probably not going to sign. And to answer your question, would this Donbas, the territorial issues, be a showstopper? It could be, yes.
You're looking at the most prestigious board of leaders ever assembled. Boasts its founding father, Donald Trump, a body he says could soon do, quote, pretty much whatever we want. But as the Board of Peace moves beyond Gaza and onto the global stage, Europe's lukewarm response is exposing deep doubts about who would really hold the power. So where's Poland in all that? Paweł Czeskowski reports.
You are looking at the most prestigious board of leaders ever assembled, to quote its founding father, Donald Trump. The Board of Peace, initially conceived as an organization overseeing the ceasefire in Gaza, has ambitious plans to expand.
Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do.
Among the European countries, Hungary signs on, along with Bulgaria, Kosovo, and that's it. Trump's invitation gets a cold response from Europe.
It's highly, highly risky, in particular for such countries as Poland.
The risks are numerous, but one seems to tower above them all.
What's the point of having a board peace if the text gives all the decision-making to President Trump?
And Poland has been hesitant from day one. President Karol Nawrocki expressed interest, but hedged his answer, explaining that the decision wasn't just his to make.
This type of presidential signature, of course, requires prior approval by the Polish parliament and an initiative from the government. So I simply expressed my great interest in participating in the Board of Peace.
The government says they will have to mull it over.
We will take it very seriously and examine all the pros and cons.
For Warsaw, the situation isn't entirely inconvenient. It looks as if the decision is being delayed by domestic politics.
So Mr. Nawrocki's been able to maintain a positive relationship with Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump doesn't seem to bear him a grudge. But the Polish government has actually got what it's wanted, which is for Mr. Nawrocki not to join this body.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But stalling is unlikely to work as a long-term strategy, given Poland's dependency on the US on many fronts.
As a Polish Prime Minister, I will be always very, dedicated to transatlantic relations, and for us, the United States are absolutely the most important partner when it comes to our security.
And ultimately, decision day may eventually come. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Congratulations, President Trump.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has responded sharply to Donald Trump's recent comments downplaying NATO commitments, referencing past sacrifices on social media platform X. Tusk urged the U.S. to remember Poland's role as a loyal ally.
On December 22, 2011, in Ghazni, Afghanistan, I took part in the farewell ceremony for the 5 fallen Polish soldiers. The American officers who accompanied me then told me that America would never forget the Polish heroes. Perhaps they will remind President Trump of that fact.
Now let's focus on business. Poland's economy is showing renewed momentum, with manufacturing output rebounding faster than expected. A stronger than forecast rise in industrial production is supporting growth and improving domestic confidence, while also drawing increased attention from investors.
The Polish economy is picking up speed, and a rebound in manufacturing is adding to that momentum. Industrial production rose more than 7% in December compared to a year earlier, more than double expectations of a roughly 3% gain. This prompted an enthusiastic response from Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
That's what I call growth. As I predicted, 2026 will be a year of acceleration.
Poland's industrial sector, which accounts for just under a third of the country's economic output, has caught the attention of international investors.
You have a cost position that makes it attractive for international strategic investors in manufacturing, automotive, etc.
Disruptions to global trade and geopolitical uncertainty have not curbed this appetite.
Poland is a growth leader in Europe. So we are seeing huge interest of investors of other countries as well.
Combined with robust consumer spending and public and private investment, manufacturing gains could further fuel Poland's economy, which is expected to grow close to 4% this year. But the sector isn't without challenges. Car manufacturing, a key pillar of Polish industry, has been undercut by a surge in Chinese car imports, electrification, and weakness in the German economy.
Historically, the economies have been quite linked with Germany as part of Germany's supply chain for automotive and manufacturing.
As of 2024, Poland's auto industry employed just under 200,000 people. And Poland's cost advantage relative to Western Europe is steadily shrinking, with labor costs having doubled between 2016 and 2024, according to Statistics Poland. By comparison, they rose just 30% in the EU as a whole. While hurdles remain, renewed industrial strength could give Poland's economic expansion another leg to stand on. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
Now let's get a bit of culture. The Grand Warsaw Race is Poland's oldest and most prestigious horse race, held each year on the outskirts of the capital. A new movie released this week looks back at the race during the 1990s, focusing on the social and economic realities of the period and the influence of money and corruption swirling around the event.
Since 1895, the Grand Warsaw Race has been the highlight of Warsaw's social calendar. A day of elegance and spectacle at the Służewiec racecourse. But behind the pageantry, there's always another story. A new film by Polish director Bartłomiej Ignaciuk explores the darker side of the sport, a world of race fixing, corruption and broken dreams, set in the uncertain years following the fall of communism. At the center of the story is a young jockey determined to build his career in a Poland newly open to the outside world. A world full of opportunity, but also temptation and threat. Tomasz Ziętek, who plays the leading role, spent 6 months preparing for the physically demanding task, working closely with horses.
Yeah, bitten a few times, even on a set, because, horses are horses, let's say.
The film taps into the nostalgia of the 90s, a period many of its cast are too young to remember. For Mary Pawłowska, one of the film's stars, stepping into that pivotal decade led to new discoveries.
It was amazing to be a part of this movie, because I cannot remember these times, 90s, but I feel that scenography and costumes were so good that I felt like I am back in the time. It was a journey.
The Great Warsaw Race is released nationwide on January the 23rd.
And now let's focus on a bit of sport. Matches have been suspended at the Australian Open due to extreme heat, exceeding the tournament's heat stress scale threshold. However, the match between Polish tennis superstar Iga Świątek and Russian Anna Kalinskaya is expected to go ahead as planned in the evening. The tournament operates under an extreme heat policy, measuring air temperature, radiant heat, wind speed, and humidity to assess playing conditions and delay or suspend matches when needed. The 5-point heat stress scale was at 3.4 in the early afternoon, but reached 5 later in the day. Players can take longer breaks between sets when the scale reaches 4, while 5 points means suspension of matches on outside courts and closing the roofs of the main show courts. But we do think that there will be a very hot and intense match regardless. So stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary throughout the day. Goodbye.